Hi, so I'm going to be explaining, or at least trying to explain, how I figure out the chords of songs that I cover. And I'll be using the song Wahashtini by Amr Diab as an example. So let's start out by listening to the song. Now the quality is not going to be very good because I'm going to be playing the song through the speakers and picking that up through the microphone, but hopefully it'll be alright. So we'll start off with the first part. Now I'm using Winamp to play the song, and I've set the equalizer in such a way to increase the bass frequency so that we can hear the bass notes better. Okay, so let's start off with the first part. Okay, here you can hear no bass guitar playing, and the bass guitar is the important part. Here we can notice that the bass guitar starts playing, and this is the first note that you hear. It's a B flat. Okay, so this is what you hear. You hear a B flat, and then an A, then a D, then a G, a C, and an F. Let's play back again. So unfortunately my voice is relatively more in the tenor range, so I can't really sing those low bass notes, but I'm going to sing them one octave higher so that you can hear what is happening. Okay, so da, 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 da. You should be able to hear that. So again. So basically those are the chords of the introduction now, okay, which turn out to be B flat, A minor, D, G minor, C, and F, because those are the bass notes that we heard. Right, so if we need to determine whether, after knowing that the root of the chord is going to be a B flat, if we need to determine whether this is going to be a minor chord or a major chord, basically one of the easy ways you can do it is that you need to listen to the context of the song, and the chords usually are determined by that. So you can say that major chords are usually more lively or happy sounding chords, so this sounds happy to me, versus minor chords which are more melancholic and sad, so this sounds more sad to me. Okay, so this doesn't really sound like the more appropriate chord to be playing in that introduction, which is rather happy. Okay, I know this is a superficial explanation, but it works. Another way you can do it is that you can simply try and see which sounds better to your ear. Now this is where your ear comes into play, and there's not much I can really explain about that. So you have to be the judge, okay? So if you were to listen to the introduction, for example, okay, and play a minor chord instead of the major chord, I would say that you would be able to pick up the fact that it sounds not so great, versus the major chord, which sounds much better. So let's have a try. versus a major chord, which sounds much better in my opinion. Okay, you can try that with all the chords if you can't really tell whether you're supposed to be playing major or minor, and you can figure them out that way. Okay, now when it comes to sevenths and major sevenths and all that, I think we should take it one step at a time first and try to just figure out the bass notes and therefore the roots of the chords that we should be using, and we can take it from there. With time and practice, you'll be able to appreciate things like that last F in the introduction being played like this, okay, which is an actual F major seventh instead of just an F major, okay. So it doesn't sound like this, it sounds like this, so it has that F major seventh in there, even though this is an F. But anyway, let's try not to get into those details, just be able to figure out the main chords of the song, and you can then add the ornamentation later on, okay. So let's try to move on to the other part of the song and see what happens there. So here you can hear this. This is what the bass guitar is playing. So D, G. Okay, and then you hear B flat and then A. Okay, so go back. Now it doesn't always have to be the bass guitar that gives you the clue. It can be the piano or the electric guitar or the string arrangement or any instrument that will be able to give you the clue as to which chord you're supposed to play. You don't always have to hear this and then this being played by the bass guitar, okay? Actually here maybe you don't really hear the bass guitar very, very well. This is what I hear here. It might not be the bass guitar. I'm not sure which instrument exactly it is. It might be the bass guitar overshadowing the string arrangement or something like that. But then you can definitely hear the bass guitar play the B flat and then A. So مكسوف ليه. Okay, so okay, so this is what I hear. So this translates to D, G, D, G, D, G, then B flat, A. Okay, so that's the verse, or that part of the song. So the same way will have to be followed to determine whether it's minor or major chords. So if you try to go like this, it'll really sound off, okay, because that part sounds sad to me, or melancholic. Okay, so let's try. So it doesn't really sound good. Okay, so if you compare that with using a D minor chord, it sounds much better, and that's why you're using a minor. The same thing with the G minor, but then when you go back to the B flat, it sounds like a major chord to me versus a minor. Okay, now it also helps if you know some scales and you know some chord construction, because you will realize that D minor, G minor, B flat, and A are all chords that go well together for music theory reasons. Okay, now I'm not going to explain that because that's not really how I come up with the chords, but if you had some basis in music theory, you'd figure out that these chords go well together for a certain reason. Okay, so let's try to move on to the next part. So, sinin part. So what I heard here was okay, and you'll notice that it's B flat and then it's a minor chord here, but the other one goes okay, so it's a major chord, which brings us to the chorus. So let's listen to that. Let's listen to that variation with the minor versus major chord. Okay, so you will hear the difference between the minor chord and the major chord in that part of the song. You should be able to pick that up. So the vocals so the fact that he's singing this C note makes the chord a minor chord. And then when he goes to the other part, so you really have to be able to listen to those things and pick them up, and I don't really have a better explanation for them, so you have to try. I mean, if you use the major chord first, it's not going to sound very good. So let's listen to that. It sounds much better on the second time he goes. So this is why you use the minor first one and the major as a second one. Okay, so let's try the chorus part. Here the bass is very clear. Okay, so so you can hear that very clearly. translates into B flat, C, A minor, D. This time it's a major one because you just have to listen to the context. I mean, let's go back. You can hear that note being played by the string arrangement, okay? So once you have that F sharp, it's definitely going to be a D major chord, which is by definition one that has an F sharp in it, or else you'll be playing a minor chord, which doesn't really sound good. So listen. Versus, so you can hear that F sharp note in there, okay? That's basically it. I mean, that's how I figure out the chords to most of the songs, and it definitely gets better with experience. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not rocket science, it's not magic, it's not something impossible. So you just have to train your ear to be able to pick up those bass notes. Try to fiddle around with the equalizer if you're using some sort of software to play back. Try to raise the bass frequency, the amplitude of those notes so that you can hear them better. With practice and with time, it should become an easy thing to do. And about the major and minor chords, if you can't really hear the difference between whether you need to play a major or a minor chord, then you can always just try one versus the other and see if it works out. So if one of them sounds better than the other, then go with that one, and don't really worry about those really fancy, difficult chords that I sometimes use that are complicated, or diminished chords or stuff like that, or sevenths or sixths, or add nines or suspended chords. You'll be able to pick those up later with practice and with time. Just be able to figure out the root notes and which chords go along with that. To be able to do that, you definitely need to know the notes at least over the bass strings, okay, and the shapes of the basic chords, and I hope this lesson helped you out.